Good morning, church. It's great to be with you again today. We're in the last three chapters of Joshua today, chapters 22, 23, and 24, and we're going to try and focus on three specific things today. In chapter 22, I want us to notice there is an opportunity for offense and bitterness and anger and all kinds of things, and I want to show us how to do conversations well where you have serious subject matters that need to be discussed. So you've got in verse 10 and 11 you've got the Israelites hearing about what the three tribes across the river have been doing. And then in verse 13, you've got it so that they're going to send some delegated people to go and find out what's going on. And then in verse 21, you've got the three tribes across the river that are going to be given the opportunity to respond to the accusation. And then in verses 30 and 31, you're going to see the people that are coming, they actually hear and catch that. They didn't go in with a preconceived idea and were unwilling to listen. They heard what the other people said and rejoiced in their response. Friends, this is how we have difficult conversations. The people of Reuben, Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh would have had reason to a degree to be very offended and hurt because they did things with godly intentions. And yet what was their response? They did not get offended. They did not get bitter or resentful toward the other tribes. They heard out their concern, then they responded in humility and grace, and their response was received, and the result was that both parties are praising the Lord. Friends, I got a question for you. In those kinds of situations for you, have you been quick to speak and slow to listen, or have you been slow to speak and quick to listen? It's very important for us, friends, to encourage others and ourselves to be quick to listen and then respond accordingly. Chapter 23, verses 14 to 16, Joshua is going to exhort in his final farewell, he is going to exhort the children of Israel and remind them of the incredible goodness of God. He reminds them how God is a God that is patient, kind, slow to anger, abounding in love. He is compassionate. He is all these wonderful things, and his heart's desire is to bless you. And friends, that is the same God we serve today. Hebrews chapter 13 says that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. It's the same God we serve today. But Joshua also reminds them that God is not a God who is going to unconditionally give us his blessings. His love, his faithfulness is unconditional, but his blessings are not. And he quickly reminds them in verse 16 that if you disobey the covenant of the Lord, you can expect discipline and judgment to come into your life. The reason I want to highlight that again, friends, is because we serve a God who is many things all at one time. He is love. He is peace. He is slow to anger and abounding in love, but he is also a disciplinarian and a father who cares about correcting his children. And I find more and more today, we see people that are getting into the ditch on either side of the road, and they are focusing only on one or two aspects of God's character without remembering that he is all of these things at the same time. And so, friends, we've got to avoid the pitfall of getting out of balance. God, it feels like he is extreme in his love for us. He is extreme in his grace. But he is also extreme in his ability and willingness to punish us if we need it to draw our hearts back to him. And so while we can see that God is, if you want to call it, he's all out in both directions, we need to stay out of the ditch and remember that he is all of those things at one time. So don't forget that. Be focused on following God in balance, even though he is extremes in these ways. Praise the Lord. Then I want to close with this. In chapter 24, and really it kind of starts already in chapter 23, Joshua is reviewing for the people what they have been through as a nation and what God has all done for them. And what I want us to catch is that the focus of what Joshua is talking about is not necessarily all that the people have done. It is on what God has done. If you look at chapter 24, verse 12 and 13, it says specifically, you guys did not accomplish all of this. God gave it to you. God did it for you. And so his focus, while he needs to highlight God's faithfulness and his power with the history of the Israelite people, the focus isn't the people. The focus is the Lord. And so he reviews these wonderful things that God has done for them. And then he says, now choose. And I want to jump at the end of the chapter. You can see how Joshua is getting to kind of wrapping up his book and how the book of Judges is going to get introduced. when he says Israel served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and all the elders. And it sadly almost hints to this question we could have, well, yeah, but what about after? What happened after? And it's this reality, church, that we cannot depend on what our parents have taught us. We cannot depend on what our grandparents have taught us or what our forefathers have done. Every generation, every individual within those generations needs to choose for themselves who they will serve. Because if your faith is based on a leader, a parent, someone else, when those people either hurt you or disappoint you or are gone, so will your faith be. But if your faith has been in God, your faith will stand the test of time. And so we're going to close with verse 15, where Joshua exhorts the people. Friends, if serving the Lord today seems undesirable to you, then serve whoever you want. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Blessings, church. Choose Jesus today.